Nice. Are you back in Kansas now? Is that where you're living, or are you still in Michigan?
I am in Kansas. We loved our years there. We lived in Canton while we were there. Actually ended up selling the house to John Keating, my good friend, and so he still resides in that area. And but yeah, we loved our time there. It was just a different chapter in our lives.
Presumably spending a little more time at home now, John Keating, in your former home.
Oh yeah, he just calls me when something goes wrong in the house. I said, "Man, it's your house now, not mine anymore."
Does he expect you to get on the plane and come fix it? Come work on the plumbing?
Tell him, man. What do you think, man? You think I'm just going to come over there and get you a new furnace or what?
That kind of seems like something he'd do potentially, but that's good. Oh yeah, definitely. And he had a good send off there with the Red Wings stuff last year, and he's covered the market well for many years. Have you ever thought about going into broadcasting yourself? I see how much work goes into it. I actually with Dan Miller, I do with Fox 2. I do opening day. I have for several years now. Dan Petrie used to do it. I guess he just kind of threw my name out there, and I fly up and back, and I do that, and that's more coverage pre and post game. But it's really, there's a lot of work to get. People don't realize how much goes into that. I mean, it really comes down to having an idea of what you're talking about. Knowing how to pronounce names is a big deal. You don't want to sound like you're not really following along closely, but it's it's crossed my mind. I've done some stuff with Wichita State, where I went to college here in Wichita, and done some play-by-play there. But I don't know. It's the longer I'm away from it, the nicer it is to sit in my lounge chair and listen to other people do it. I don't blame you. You do have a fellow Kansas native there, that a guy with Kansas roots that does a pretty good job on the commentary, and Andy Dirks. And I know he's brought you up on commentary occasionally as well because of the Kansas connection and other things. But he's got a good lane because he doesn't even have to pronounce the names correctly. He can not do it, and Benetti can just help him out, and then that kind of works for his gimmick.
Yeah, and Dirksy is great. He's actually he's made for it. I mean, he's obviously, you guys have probably heard him 1,000 times by now, but he's very witty, and he's able to pick up things in the game, because the game, obviously with baseball, the pace can be slower, then it can pick up quick, and then you got to kind of understand the game to catch on to what's happening, and then be able to, tell the fans that are listening or watching what's going on. And he's always got an idea what's going on.
He's in my opinion one of the perfect types of broadcasters for that role, because he doesn't take himself too seriously, but he's clearly a smart guy, but he's kind of gotten into the lane of like, oh, well, I'm a former ball player and Benetti's the smart one, but once he gets into that analysis, you can tell how well he knows the game and things in general, but he kind of plays up kind of the folksy, I'm going out and fishing and hunting thing, and then he's found a nice lane there, because like you said, he's got a lot of great analysis, and he's got a great feel for the game and broadcasting in general.
Yeah, it's funny. I kept up with the Tigers. I have ever since I've left there, especially when they've had these great runs here last couple of years. And but I'll watch highlights if I don't. I'll check scores, but then I'll watch highlights afterwards on the MLB app. And Dirksy, the only thing he's got to come up with is a different thing to say in the spur of the moment, which he's he's very witty, so he can come up with something on a big swing, a big play. He's got a lot of different phrases for a lot of different things, but he's very good at what he does there now.
Oh, definitely. Well, I'm glad to know that you've been keeping up with the Tigers, because I'm curious what I want to kind of bounce around with your career and then current thoughts on the Tigers and talk a little bit about the World Series maybe. But I'm curious about your thoughts on the Tigers, especially the current pitching staff, because they had a lot of good arms this year, but obviously had some injury issues. So I'm curious what you thought of the staff as a whole, and then some of the young guys, and kind of what you saw there from the Tigers pitching staff this year.
Well, you got first of all, you got some bionic arms, but these guys are competitive and they're determined, and I think that they feed off each other. And health, obviously, for everybody, you can just get past that hoop right there. It's just the fact that you got to stay healthy, and if you're not healthy, then you're just sitting on the shelf. But with that being said, that's similar to what I experienced as well with my peers and the pitching staff that we had. I mean, you're seeing it with these young men in Detroit now, is that they really do. They just they lean on each other, they learn from each other, and they pull for each other. And then when it comes to facing different lineups and where they had their successes and their failures, I mean, everybody's style is different, and guys approach hitters differently because they have different stuff. However, in the end, there's always little bits and pieces that you can pull from another guy and apply that to what you're trying to do to get outs. And that's what they've been doing all year long. They've been doing that for a while. And it looks like, and hopefully Scooble stays around. I love watching him throw. Everybody does. He is a force. And so hopefully for a long time, not just Scooble, but the rest of that staff, they'll be around for a little bit, and they should be really good.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you next, is about Scooble, because I mean, I don't know what you make of him. You were a great pitcher yourself, but the fact that the development in the game is incredible to me, because two things I wanted to ask you about were Scooble, and then in the next segment we'll talk about Ohtani a little bit, because I want to know how you handle Ohtani mentally, because I don't know that I can, and I couldn't do either thing well, pitch or hit, and so that's a whole different beast. But Scooble, he's at the top of his game. He's obviously going to need to get paid to stay with the Tigers. I think he has a legitimate interest in staying with them, but also there's that compound effect that he's then there to mentor those young guys, Job and Olson and some of the other guys that are coming up, and could learn from him and Flaherty and Mize and some of the guys with a little bit more experience. So I'm hoping that too, but he has to be a marvel for you to watch every fifth day.
Oh, absolutely. I was up there, I believe it was last summer. And I was up in the press box area, and they had like this little small, it might've been last summer, 2 summers ago, but I think it was last summer where, it might've been Jason Beck that asked, is there, Scooble obviously being left-handed and wearing number 29. Well, I wore 29 too, and I was like, hey, that's a whole nother level of 29 there, Beck. I mean, Scooble. And it's funny because that's a big number for lefties in Detroit. There's 2 guys that are, I mean, like I said, they're on a different planet than I was, but Mickey Lolich as well, another lefty that I got a chance to be around, but 2 very special pitchers, special in Detroit, and again, getting back to Scooble, hopefully he's special in Detroit for a lot longer.
What influenced you picking 29? That didn't have anything to do with Lolich, did it? That was a number that you'd picked for a while?
That was actually that was my dad's number, and he coached me. Best friend. He coached me and my brothers, and we all just learned the game of baseball together. And I admire the heck out of him. I respect the heck out of him, and there's no other person I'd rather be like in life than my dad. So 29 I started with 37 as a number that I picked. I think somebody may have been wearing 29, but as I try to establish a number, 37 is what I picked.
just pretty much because we had a pitcher at Wichita State that was a legend, Darren Dreifert, if you remember him, Golden Spikes guy. He was number 37, but that's where I went to school as well. However, Kenny Rogers came in, and Kenny Rogers, when he signed, obviously he was bringing number 37 with him. So typically the younger guy yields, but Kenny was gracious enough to do a little compensation for that number 37, and then it was easy to go to 29.
Nice. Well, I'm curious what the compensation was. I'm always curious about those transactions. You don't have to say it, though, Nate.
No. Well, just John Keating's enjoying it now. I'll just tell you that. We actually finished our basement in our house there in Canton, my wife and I, and one of the areas in the basement was a theater. And, Kenny, I didn't bring it up. I just said, hey, I know you're 30. I offered it to him, and he just responded to me. He's like, what do you want? And so it didn't take me long. I said, well, Kenny, we're finishing up the basement. We got this movie theater. And so he got a big movie screen and a projector for that movie theater. And it remained in the basement in the theater when, along with our very, very comfortable movie theater chairs. So when Keating ever complains about anything, I try to remind him about what's pretty nice down there in the basement.
Yeah, go watch Casablanca downstairs, John. Yeah, that's good. I like that one. Well, we got to take a quick break, but I want to come back with Nate Robertson, talk more about his time with the Tigers, and see what his thoughts are on the World Series here. So stick with us. You're listening to Sports Intel on Jethro FM. Having a nice conversation here with Nate Robertson about his time in Detroit and his current thoughts on what's going on with the Tigers organization. I'm curious here, Nate, because you played for one of the iconic managers here in baseball as a whole, and obviously he just got enshrined here. So I'm curious if you have a best Jim Leyland story for us.
Well, there's the ratings on those types of stories can go from G to rated R.
We'll keep a PG one here. The FC, we don't want the FCC after us.
No, I got you. No, I think there's always comedy involved with him. There was that grit, there was that determination as a leader for our team, our clubhouse, our culture that he brought. And I guess probably the first. There was two things really that led up to this point of him coming in to Detroit, understanding the team that he was coming into, the players on that team, and really obviously having his expectations. He wrote all of us that were returning players a letter. I still have that letter, and all he really talked about was what was to be expected of this team, and really seeing us for what we were and what we could be. But he got to know each and every player at an individual level, got to know what made him tick. The first time I met him, he came up to me. We were up there for our physicals and a fantasy camp, or not camp, the Tiger Fest. We used to come to Detroit. Guys would fly in, and we'd go around the state and try to get people pumped up for baseball in January. And he came up, and one of the first things he asked me is, how's Kristen doing, my wife? And I'd never met Jim at the time, and I thought it was pretty impressive. Now you can go to like one of those media guides and see a player, his family, and their names and things like that. But took the time to get to know my wife's name. He said, "How's Kristen doing?" And I was like, "Wow." There's an intimidation factor because I was still fairly young at the time. That here comes Jim Leyland, and he already knows about my family, let alone me. So to kind of fast forward, we went West Coast and we had a deal, and I think there's an iconic moment where he kind of went off on basically us through the media, but that was only before he face to face got in our kitchen a little bit. And it was after a Cleveland game, I believe, at home. We flew out west, and I was pitching in Seattle, and there was a game that I was throwing, getting deep into the game, very tight game.
And I was throwing well. We were up, I think, 2-1, and Raul Banez came up. I think I had one out, and I hit Raul Banez, left-handed hitter, which that was a good matchup for me. He gets first base, one out. Here comes Leland, and I'm thinking, typically when the manager comes out, you're giving him the ball. It's over with. Your day's done. But that wasn't the case. I started to hand the ball out to him, and he didn't take the ball. He just put his hands on his hips. And he had something to say to me, and that's where, I won't tell you exactly what he said, but it's basically, this is your game. And so any pitcher loves that. Any pitcher loves that moment where a manager comes out, and the guy that was getting in the box was Richie Sexson. This guy crushed lefties. He hit tons of home runs. A giant in the box, and I had one out, and it's not the best matchup late in the game. It's 7th inning. And I ended up I rolled him up, and I got a double play and got out of the inning. And so I came out of there, finished the 7th, and sat down at the end of the dugout, and he came up. He didn't even say a word to me, just this little funny-looking little dance move. And then he walked back down to the other end of the dugout. But the confidence that he had in me in that moment, really, it just bled throughout each and every player on that team in that year. And it was such a special year to do what we did.
I'm sure it wasn't this, but in my head, it was the dance move was Leslie Nielsen in Naked Gun, where he's playing the umpire and he starts doing the moonwalk and getting the crowd behind him because they like when he calls a strike. So then he just calls strikes the whole time and then starts dancing around and flipping around. That's
I
what
know exactly the part in the movie. There's a little that Leslie does in that movie that it looked a little bit like that, and it was kind of like it was a pumping of the fist, and the leg kind of did something crazy, and it was a cool moment just to see. You kind of have an idea of who you think Jim Leland is until you find out who Jim Leland is, and then that was who he was, and he did it again in the playoffs with me against the A's, Game 1 in Oakland. And he came out. I had walked Frank Thomas. I gave up a double to Milton Bradley. They had second, third, nobody out, and he came out to the mound in a pretty critical moment. And once again, it was one of those moments that he came out to the mound. It wasn't to take the ball from me. And I ended up, something lightning struck, and I struck out the side and got out of the inning. But we ended up winning that game and going on to beat the A's and go to the World Series. But Jim Leland, there's so many stories people can tell. But the best part about stories about Jim Leland is when he tells them. I mean, if you haven't been to one of these banquets or where he's the keynote speaker somewhere, it's a riot. I mean, he's entertainment to the fullest, but he's just a great man. He's my favorite manager I ever had.
That doesn't surprise me at all, because everybody's got a Jim Leland story that played for him or had contact with him. And that was one of the fun things about him going into the Hall. There was a lot of talk about him and celebration of him. And then he was on the broadcast a decent amount, and that was fun to see. So, yeah, I had to get one out of you. We got to close with the whole gum time thing, because I think I'm contractually obligated to ask about it in a Nate Robertson interview. But I'm just curious about that and about your view of that, because it is kind of an iconic thing that happened. And baseball is so funny to me, because it is all about, as silly as it may seem, with the whole big league chew and that being the rally cry. That's a lot of what baseball is about. It's about a lot of the technical stuff and all of that, but it's about the motivation that you're talking about with Leland and coming out there and doing a little fist pump and a little spin move in the dugout. A lot of it is the little things that get a rally going and become a rally cry. And that was a big one, because you guys are all very, very good players, big league players, but the difference between kind of the upper echelon sometimes is just getting hot. You know that better than anybody, being in a World Series. It's what team is getting hotter going into the playoffs and during the playoffs. And so something like that can be very important. It can be more important than striking out the side even, or coming in for an appearance, because you're getting the whole team motivated that way. And if it becomes a rally cry that people build around, you're getting momentum for the entire organization that way.
Yeah, that's true. And, when it comes down to it, people try to talk about who's better at this position than that. To me, I don't care what a major league team's record is, or, what kind of talent is talent. Right. I mean, it's just the best in the world on those baseball fields. And really the mentality, the mindset is what separates. And it can come throughout a complete season. It can come in moments and spurts. But the mindset of, and it's just, I can't really explain it other than the fact that when you're in that moment, you just know, that it's going to go, we're going to win, or something good's going to happen here. And I see a lot of that with the Blue Jays right now. I mean, they just keep on. I think they're going to win it, but you never know with baseball. I mean, this has been a crazy year for a lot of teams, including the Tigers. But the rally thing, yes. I mean, I think that year we led the league in the most comeback wins of any other team. And I think late in the game, there was obviously many times where we were trailing. To have the most comeback, we were trailing, and that was just a deal. That was a TV game where they asked to mic somebody up. I was standing there next to Kenny Rogers. Kenny'd ask Kenny, and Kenny was like, "I'll let one of these younger guys do it." And I was always taught, let your actions go speak for yourself, and I wasn't really one to try to draw attention to myself. And so I was standing there. They asked me. I said, "I'll put the mic on." They mic'd me up, get in the game. We're losing the Yankees. I think it's 5-0. And they're obviously on the mic. They want conversation with guys in the dugout. So that's pretty vanilla. You typically just kind of keep it vanilla. And I did, however. Because we have the seeds, we have the gum, and when I was in Little League, we had rally cries with seeds or gum, or so you stuff something in your mouth and you'd hope for a rally. And so I told the guys up in the booth that, hey, I'll throw you guys a bone here, and I'll do something. I'll throw some, some gum in, and we'll do something like we did, like we were in Little League. And I threw a big old wad of gum in my mouth. Just grabbed a pack of Big League Chew and threw a big wad in. And right when I did that, they put the camera on me, and Pudge hit a home run. And it's just TV magic. And it really just, the rest of that game, I did it 2 more times, I think, and we scored both times I did it. And then they just the TV, they kept on putting the camera on me every single time. And then we rallied back to tie that game. I think we ultimately lost, but then it was a thing. I mean, it was a thing the rest of the year, and it was kind of funny. It was just a funny little deal. The fans loved it, and really it was the fans' thing. But you know what TV does? It just magnifies things, and so it just took off. The fans loved it. It was their rally cry, and we had fun with it.
It's a neat story because it may seem kind of silly to people on the outside as far as like when people talk about like, a lucky article of clothing but in baseball, I feel like that stuff happens the most, where just these little tweaks. It's a 162 game season. You can't be hot, you can't be playing at your best the entire season, and so you need those little things to push you into place and get you over that hump and make those comebacks. So I think it's a cool story, but we really appreciate you joining the show and talking about your career. Hopefully we'll be able to have you back on it at some point in time, but we don't want to get you into broadcasting or anything. We want you to enjoy your time, but there's more to talk about. But appreciate you joining the show, and we'll look forward to having you back on here at some point.
Yes, sir, and a shout-out to Jim Jarecki and the West Michigan Whitecaps. I went up there for their foundation fundraiser, and they did a first-class job there and obviously had a great season. So
go Whitecaps as well.
We love Jim. They're a sponsor of the station as a whole, and he does a great job with that organization, and it is a big part of why they were number one rated as far as minor league organizations this year here.
It's a fun place. Yeah, it's a fun place.
Definitely. Well, yeah, appreciate you joining the show, and we'll look forward to talking to you again sometime here.
Yes, sir, Ryan.
All right. Thanks, Nate. Take care.
Take care.
Sports Intel with Ryan Walsh is brought to you by Mary Freebed, Collectible Insurance Services, West Michigan Eye Care Associates, Eric Hall, DDS, Calder Financial Group, Grand Management, Rydan Investments, JH Realty Partners, and Encore Business Group. Sports Intel with Ryan Walsh airs live Monday night, 7 p.m. Eastern on Jethro FM.
Stay informed and stay vigilant.